guys, welcome back to our another episode of Global Interviews. This is Starlight here, and today we have Jason Fang for today's interview. Please welcome Jason.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming. How are you doing?
Good. Really enjoying the market right now.
Okay, so first thing first, can you tell us a bit about your background and your journey into the blockchain industry?
Sure. So I started the blockchain and then investing in blockchain on a professional level in late of 2015. I was one of the early employees at Fimbushi Capital at that time. Vitalik was one of the GP there. So it was one of the first funds that really dedicated 100% into blockchain. That time was mostly Bitcoin equity, blockchain equity, and I was in charge of kind of the North American market. And then in 2017, obviously there was the hype in ICO and just tokens, right? The intro of like tokens, and so started obviously the fund Fimbushi Capital started investing a lot in that, and that was the time when I decided to on a personal level start investing, and then realized that there was a lot of interest from kind of the non-crypto space that were like interested in like investing in tokens, but then there wasn't a lot of like products that was available in market. For example, there were a lot of funds back then, but then most of these funds didn't have like the proper regulation or didn't have the fund custodian, they didn't have fund admin. There wasn't a PPM, back in the days, like a lot of the funds were so-called something capital, but then it's all run by like a centralized wallet or, that people send Bitcoin or Ether in, right? So there's like not many transparency, there's not many accountability. And so my thought process is like, I come from the blockchain world, not from the crypto world. So, I got into this industry because I was super interested in the technology. And so with that in mind, I've always kind of like value regulation, value transparency, accountability. And I saw that there was obviously a lack of that in many funds. And so I started Sora Ventures with the aim to try to have like as much transparency, accountability, and a product that can provide that for a lot of investors. And so I believe we were like one of the first funds in Asia that actually had that. And bear in mind, this was like mid 2017, where not many lawyers knew how to start a crypto fund. PPM, like subscription docs, like all that stuff, like wasn't a thing, right? Fund admins didn't really know how to do KYC and MLL. And in general, people didn't understand cryptocurrency and like stable coins and all that stuff, right? And so we had the privilege to really work with the early law firms in Hong Kong, and to some extent, it was us working together. Fund admins in the US working together on a daily basis to kind of build Sora Ventures. And then in 2018, we launched a fund investing, again, mostly in layer one. At that time was mostly layer one, with the emphasis on media and entertainment, because I believe, especially gaming, because I believe that was what we call a low-hanging fruit. That was a more appropriate or easy application that a blockchain can interface with at an early stage. Again, coming from the background where we did a lot of Bitcoin investment, equity investment, blockchain equity investment, we have a very good in-depth understanding of, if you utilize blockchain as a strategy on top of other industries, what works and what doesn't work, which industry are slow or conservative, which ones are much more easier to kind of apply. And that's how we kind of built Sora Ventures, and we've been running it as an open-ended fund, meaning that we have the flexibility to invest in secondary market, we have the flexibility to invest in equity market, and we have the flexibility to be investing in the token market. And that gave us, there's obviously pros and cons to that, but obviously that gave us a lot of flexibility in terms of getting exposed and de-risking from the market. And today we've been still very heavily invested into gaming, social media, community development, entertainment, and we still believe that is still like overall blockchain as an industry very early.
Since launching Sora Ventures in 2018, you've seen your fair share of bull and the bear cycles. How have you managed to stay liquid in this market, especially since some of biggest funds like 3AC are currently in trouble?
Yeah. So, you know what? And when we first started 2018, we started at a time when it was just, the market was starting to grow down, basically drop and slowly kind of enter the first phase of the bear market. To be honest, like at that time, I was still relatively young, and we didn't de-risk as well as we wanted to. So we did go through some trouble of trying to find liquidity in the market during tough times, and especially prices in general just like plummeting. Right, there's a lot of like FUD in our industry. A lot of people were starting to think that, hey, maybe blockchain is a total scam, right? Maybe crypto is a total scam, and a lot of people were jaded, right? I think if the biggest difference between last bear market and this bear market is that in the last bear market there was not a lot of information or data or case studies on how bad this industry can really go, and a lot of investors, institution or personal, were fully jaded. They were just like scared, right? And at one point, a lot of them just didn't want to come back and just like straight up said, "This industry is never going to come back, and I wish I never got in the industry." Right? We know a good amount of people like that, and especially in Asia, where Asian investors tend to like more liquid funds. And so, with that in mind, for this bear market, we prepare and equip ourselves way much better than I think like other funds that we've seen in the market. Like I'm currently traveling in Asia, and I realize that we're positioned way better than a lot of other funds. And I've never even thought about saying this, but I'm actually quite excited about the bear market. I think the bear market and the bull market is like a balance. It's a zero-sum game. You can make money in bear market and you can make money in the bull market. Most people are more excited about the bull market, but if you play your cards right, you can actually do well in the bear market. So, in the last bear market, obviously people are upset about the industry not doing well. But this time I'm actually quite excited. A couple of reasons. One is I know blockchain is definitely here to stay. And so obviously in a long-term perspective, I think this industry will recover, right? Two is that this is not like a bear market where crypto investors like ourselves actually suffer. I mean, most people who bought into crypto from the crypto space bought Bitcoin like below 20K, right? The way I put it is that Bitcoin 20K or above is mostly institution, right? It's the non-crypto people who got in the industry. 20K or below is actually the crypto guys, right? So most of my friends in this industry bought Bitcoin or any exposure in cryptocurrency when Bitcoin was well below 20K. And so they're still making money, right? But people who got into the space later on, they might have had some loss. But in general, like if you compare that, like the price point right now to the last bear, we're still actually doing quite well, right? So from our perspective is what we've learned over time is that, hey, de-risking is really important. Risk management is more important than profitability. And we made the first move last Q3, right? So from our perspective right now, we are just waiting for the market to kind of respond, and then we'll see how things go.
Mhm.
But in between, we're still looking for good deals. We're still looking to invest in great entrepreneurs. We're still really bullish about the direction that we've been since 2018, which is like gaming, social media, entertainment. These what we call the low-hanging fruits. And so, yeah, we're very excited about the bear. Yeah. And then I think this is going to be an interesting time where, obviously a lot of funds will disappear after the bear, but those who actually did manage well and do have the accountability, do have the transparency, do have the data, they will actually, they will actually do well after the bear. And this game, like in this industry, it's not about how much money you make. It's more about how, like, your survivability, right? How long you can last, like who's going to be around after each bear, and who's going to be the one who actually stays around.
For the third question is, what is the Sora Ventures all about, and what are the differences in your roles between Sora Ventures and Sora Foundation?
Yeah. So when we first started, Sora Ventures, we realized something that is quite unique than other funds, where, traditional funds, you always have like LPs are really important, like these are big family office or like big corporates that are supporting you. But realistically, we realize it's like, hey, other than the fact that they have more money than the GPs, they really don't add much value to the portfolio companies we invest in, right? It's not like a traditional VC fund where it's like, okay, we invest in startups because these startups over time will have some synergy with our LPs. In my opinion, I think even today, like I think the most important thing in investing in portfolio companies is what kind of immediate value add you can put into a company. Like for example, media is really important. Community development is really important. Giving advice on tokenomics is really important. Giving advice on like listing is really important. When to list, how to list, what is the appropriate exchanges to work with. Like a lot of things are quite unique in the industry. I think that's way more important than like showing who your LPs are, right? So who your investors are. So with that in mind, we actually allocate a good portion of our money, 20%, just investing into social media and media companies. So for example, we invested in BTC Inc., which is the host for Bitcoin Miami 2022. We invested in The Block, which we exited last year because they did like a debt financing, which they basically bought out all the investors. We invested in Forecast News, run by Angie Lau. They're based in Hong Kong, and they have a very different audience from a lot of the crypto news media because they're dealing with mostly traditional non-crypto individuals and corporate firms. So, our range is very wide. And then we also invested in like community development companies that really help portfolio companies scale, like going from 0 to 1 or starting from scratch. And starting from scratch is very important because you want to have good fundamental, right? You need to have a good partner who knows what you can say, what you can't say. For example, in the Chinese market, in the Russian market, who are the good kind of like the group of people you want to be engaging with. Like for example, the Chinese market is extremely complex. In the sense that there are certain groups of people who can be very dangerous if you engage them, right? So these could be retailers, which in general, retailers are usually good for your project, but if you engage the wrong type of like retailers, you can get in trouble, right? So things like that, where people who have no exposure, no understanding of the Chinese market, we invest in products or companies that can help our other portfolio company perform better, so that they're in a comfortable spot where they understand, okay, they're safe, they can promote in a safe way, they're not going to get in trouble, and most importantly is it will help the portfolio company grow over time. And then to answer kind of the question regarding Sora Foundation, that was more of a side project for us where generally funds don't have like conferences and all that stuff, but when we first started Sora Ventures, we thought, hey, we're going to do our conference. So we did Sora Summit in Macau in 2018, and that was I believe, the November 15 or something like that. But at the end of the year, it was a super bear market. So we did like 2 days and invited like a thousand plus delegates. So about 1,200 people showed up over 2 days conference, and about like 90 plus speakers. Relatively successful conference at the time with the bear market, but now because we're in COVID and it's so difficult to travel, and in general it's just people are kind of like used to this new form of like working where everything is much more distributed, much more decentralized. People are working from home as opposed to like office. I think at this time we're going to probably keep mostly our social media stuff or our conference stuff to the side, right? Maybe once like we figure out COVID and there's actually better travel, more friendly policies around Asia, then we'll consider that again.
You made an investment in many different areas with the blockchain industry, such as DeFi, media, and gaming. So what is your thought process behind finding and investing in a new company?
So we're early stage VC fund, and so the interesting thing that we see today that's very different from like back in the days is that back in the days like in 2017, 2018, 2019, we still have that really close opportunity to invest in many US deals along with the top US funds. But nowadays, I think there's a very, very like huge difference between how Asian funds invest and how US funds invest. For example, because the nature of the product of the funds, US funds are much larger AUM than Asian funds. Asian funds is much smaller. And so a lot of the deals that we invest right now are mostly with other Asian funds. So they'll have a lower valuation. The valuation will be much more appropriate. It will have it mostly reflects the current market situation. Whereas a lot of
Mhm.
US funds are still investing in things that have really, really high AUM, very high valuation, right? Relatively high valuation, and much more long term. And then usually each round has raised a lot more money, right? So the product that we see these couple of years and probably moving forward, I think will be very similar versus kind of the investment that we saw a couple of years ago, very different, right? With that in set and with that in mind, I think a lot of people also are looking in like DeFi and like gaming, and people are obviously very bearish, fully very bullish about these concepts, and these concepts will obviously evolve over time. But one of the things that we still realize is that you're better off investing into like good founders, right? And good founders, we like to invest many times as possible. And we like to double down on the good founders. You're better off doing more due diligence, building that relationship with the right founders, double down on them. And then as opposed to like kind of like spraying, a strategy where you're investing into 100 plus companies and you hope that some of them will do well, right? So I generally like to be working with people I've known, people who have proven with a good track record, but most importantly, people who have been through the bear market. There are a lot of entrepreneurs these days who have not been tested before, not been tested by the bear market. And I think people in general, CEOs that have been kind of been through the bear market, have been tested by the bear market, will have more experience dealing with managing their funds, understanding how to scale at a bear market, but more importantly, they can survive in the bear market. And I think this is very similar with most Asian funds as well, right? I think you're probably seeing from the news that it's not about making how much money, how big your AUM is. It's about whether you can survive the bear market, right? So similar to funds, projects that we invest in, we like to invest in founders who have that ability to kind of survive in the bear market, because we are entering the bear market. If this was the opposite, then I obviously would be a very different strategy. But with that also, with these two factors, and then we'll obviously looking at things that our fund had been very bullish on, going back what I said before earlier, gaming, social media, entertainment. We're huge on entertainment. We still think crypto is it's still highly correlated with a lot of fun, a lot of entertainment, and people love partying. For example, like NFTs in general, the other thing that I think people don't realize is like they bought all these like crazy NFTs. Some people made some money, most people lost money on NFTs, but the real value they got from the NFT is really going to these parties, right? The real tangible thing that they got out of this NFT is to go to these parties, meet people, meet the community, and have fun, right?
Yeah.
So I think with that in mind, I think people are always competing on like NFT projects, always competing on who will produce more like better parties, better like kind of giving back to community. I think people care about that, right? I think that's the whole point of at this market right now. If you're gonna buy an NFT, it's gonna be like, this exclusive club or this exclusive membership or like this exclusive community, right? And no, like these diamond hand, right, communities, right? And everyone in there are all like, fund managers, like they're true believers and they have the same philosophy, all that stuff, right? Then they have these events that they can go to and then meet people, right? So most people are not selling, and the good NFT projects, most people are not selling because of that, because they value these things, right? And so I think entertainment will be a very important part, because NFTs projects that have really good understanding of how to entertain the community will last longer.
I would like to ask you, what are your thoughts on the current market buzz?
We've been de-risking since last Q3, like I said, and I think we're probably one of the early funds who did that. I don't like this time when I was like on my trip. I realize a lot of funds still have position, and obviously read the news, then you'll see more, more news about like other funds, how they're doing and performing. But in general, I think we're still very, very early in the bear market. I think this could go even more. Like I wouldn't be surprised if Bitcoin dropped another 40 to 50%, and a lot of these altcoin drop another 80% or 90%, like from this current price. I would not be surprised, right? Obviously, I think if even if they drop like 50 to 90%, like most of these token holders, like the early investors, will still be at profit, right? They'll still be at profit at the if most altcoin drop 50% or 90% from now, they'll still be making a profit. So definitely, I feel at this current market, a lot of these tokens and altcoins, like especially the top 50 ones, are still overvalued, right? So that's why I personally feel more bear than bull, right? I'm sure other people will disagree. I'm sure other people will be like, hey, like then the market will bounce back. I mean, this bounce back is great, right? Like everyone wins, right? But I think from a fund perspective, it's more about managing the risks, understanding the macro, being ready for the bear if the bear does come, right? And the most important thing is about surviving the bear.
Thank you guys for watching today's episode. If you like the content, please leave your comments and like the videos and subscribe our YouTube channel as well. And thank you, Jason, for coming today. And it's really great to chat with you. And I will see you guys next time. Bye.